Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this morning's breakfast briefing. Bore da bawb, croeso mawr I chi, braf iawn cael eich cwmni chi eto bore yma. My name's John Parry-Jones, and it's my great pleasure this morning to welcome you to our breakfast briefing. This morning, delighted to be able to discuss a topic which is really close to our hearts, recruiting international talent, some of our fantastic Cardiff Business School and university students. We've got a full panel to discuss this with us this morning, to guide us through the challenges and the opportunities that there are. Delighted this morning to be able to welcome our own Students Futures team, who are going to be sitting here and who will chair the morning for us and guide our way through the morning. Also delighted to be able to welcome guests, our special guests from Newfields Law, Glyn and Emily. Also, Rakshinda is here as a student, one of our alumni who has been through this experience, and will give us some of the knowledge and the insights from her experience. And also Chris from Vargo, who is going to explain how the process has worked for him as an employer. So the full cycle of how this has worked for us and how this has benefited our students and our employers. Now, before I hand over to Joanna, I'd just like to remind you that speech-to-text captioning is available for those of you online. If you click on the links that Julia will have put in the chat box this morning, it will open up a new web page for you, and you'll be able to see or follow the discussion this morning with the benefit of the captioning. I'd also like to update you on a couple of events that we have coming up. If my slide moves on. Can you move that on for me? Sorry, Wayne. Thanks. I'll refer to the Help to Grow programme just in a moment. We have two briefings on the horizon coming up. One is later this month. It would normally be next month, but we're actually already in March. Chris Knott is the founder and partner at Capital Law. Chris is going to join us later this month to talk about some of his history, some of the experience that he has seen, the changes that he's seen within his profession since he started practicing law. Remarkably, he was telling us recently that the legal aid system, which in the UK used to be one of the biggest in the world, is now 79th in terms of the amount of accessibility and affordability in this country. So it's changed completely since he began practicing law. This in turn leads to perhaps the crux of Chris's discussion, or what he wants to talk about, is the ethical side of things, how the dilemma that he has and that all organizations have in terms of trying to balance making an income generating operation and making sure that it's ethically sound as well. So it's a real balance. Doesn't just apply to law companies. Chris is going to come and talk about it, but it's a really important issue for all of us as we try and balance the ethics versus income generating operation. And then 2 months down the line, so it's a fair way away, we're delighted that Lynn Neagle, member of the Senate, is going to join us. Lynn is Deputy Minister for Health and Wellbeing, and she's going to come and join us to talk about social prescribing. Again, some really interesting stats about social prescribing here in Wales is that in 2020, 25,000 people benefited from social prescribing. That's a huge figure. The knock-on of that is that there's a reduction in people making appointments at their GPs, and so forth. So there's a huge prize at the end of this when we consider how the challenges that the NHS and our healthcare system has at the moment. There are distinct benefits to us. So Lynn is going to come and share her thoughts on how we can develop that and move that forward. So we're really pleased that she's able to join us on that date. Help to Grow, very briefly, some of you may know about this, but the Help to Grow program is a program designed for SMEs, for small businesses. It's a government-driven program which entails a 15-week intensive program of teaching with our academics here, but also opportunities for you to work with peer groups, and perhaps most importantly of all, to work with a business mentor as well. So there are opportunities to work together with a mentor to be able to boost your business and help through the recovery as things move forward. So really good program. Linda Hellard, if you want to contact Linda, please do so. They do taster sessions, so there are sessions that are being carried out that may give you an idea of what you might expect from that program. Finally, a couple of important things. A reminder that the event is being recorded this morning. Second really important thing for you who are in the suite this morning, if you've come by car this morning and you didn't let me know what your registration number was or is, please let me know, because we've got a new system in the university at the moment. And I don't want you receiving rather snotty email in a few weeks' time that you might not wish to pay. So please do let me know. There's a list, if you want to double check that I've received your details, there's a list by the door. The last point, questions. This is a really busy morning. You can see that we're going to squeeze as much as we can into the next hour. If you have any questions, please do. That's the purpose of today, is to enable you to ask questions, to draw on the knowledge and the experience that everybody has here. If you're online, please pop questions into the chat box and Hannah will manage that, we'll look after that. If you're here in the suite, if you just raise your hand, we'll try and address that and bring a microphone to you. And if you just wait until you've got the microphone, then we can ensure that the people at home hear the question. It's really important. We're going to be tight for time. If you've got questions, please do pop them in the chat box, even if you think that we're running short of time, because the team here have said that they'll address any questions that are put in there. They will try and subsequently pick them up, and it may be that we come back to you next week with any responses. And also for you who are in the suite this morning, there's no rush for anyone to leave. So if you want to pick people's brains after the event, then please do feel free to do so. I'm going to hand over to Joanna Harris. Joanna's going to guide us through the next 3/4 of an hour or so. So it's over to you.
Thank you. So yeah, nice to see you all. Thanks ever so much for coming. Shall I stand behind you, John? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I've made some notes. Like, this is stuff I talk about every day, but I've made some notes just to kind of help manage my nerves this morning. But thanks everyone for coming. So I am one of the careers advisors here at the uni, part of the Student Futures team, and my colleagues are here as well. And we really wanted to host this session this morning because we feel really passionate about how capable our international students and our international alumni are. But we're also very mindful of the barriers that they can face when they're applying to and trying to secure placements, and in particular, graduate roles. But we also really see this from an employer's perspective as well. Therefore, this is why we wanted to bring this panel together. And it's about raising awareness. It's about building confidence in progressing an international graduate through your recruitment processes. And these guys are the kind of experts. They've lived through it, you know. And John has already, you know, mentioned who we've got here today. So Newfields Law here, Student Futures here, we can help you as well. We'll give you some info on that. And really, I'll just leave it over to these guys to speak, really. So Glyn, is it yourself that's coming up? Is it? Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Hi everyone. Yes, so we're Newfields Law. We're a specialist immigration firm based here in Cardiff, and we are working with businesses, helping them to recruit international workers across different levels. But we also can help with recruiting international students after they've completed their studies. So the things we're just going to quickly run through today. So the possible visa options that allow international students to enter the workforce initially. So we're going to have a quick talk about the graduate route and then the skilled worker route. They're the two main work categories. We're also going to talk about what this might mean for employers, the sort of pros and cons to both routes. And then we're going to just have a little chat about how Newfields can support employers. So as I said, there are two key routes for international students once they have completed their student or Tier 4 student visa. They can either remain in the UK in what we call a non-sponsored job role, and that will take them onto the graduate scheme visa. Once they've secured a sponsored job, they can then move to the skilled worker visa. They may, once they've completed their studies, secure a sponsored job role, and then they can skip the graduate scheme visa and move straight into the skilled worker category. So just the key requirements for applying for a graduate scheme visa. The applicant must be residing in the UK, and their last permission to be in the UK must be on a student or a Tier 4 student visa. They must have studied a UK degree, so that can be a bachelor's, a master's, a PhD, or other qualifications. So the LPC, those sorts of qualifications also do count to allow you to move into the graduate scheme visa. You also have to be studying for a minimum period of time. That realistically means that you have to have been in the UK when the university needed you to be here as a student. And the most important thing is that Cardiff University must have told UKVI, or more commonly the Home Office, that you have successfully completed your course. That is the most important criteria. So if you have a PhD, you'll be granted 3 years in the graduate scheme visa. For any other qualifications, you'll get 2 years. The conditions, it's a one-off visa, so it cannot be extended, but it does allow you to move into any other visa category. So like we said earlier, you can move into the skilled worker visa category from the graduate scheme. And if you were to move earlier, so if you went onto the graduate scheme and they'd only had it for a year, they could move out, but they can't go back to it to have their year back. So it's just a one-off. They can have dependents as long as the dependents have been here on their student visa. And they can work in any job role. It doesn't have to be what some employers consider skilled roles. It can be anything, and you can pay them any salary as long as it meets the national. And they can do things like freelancing, which isn't allowed on the skilled work. As usual, they cannot claim public funds, and the biggest thing is that it doesn't lead to settlement after 5 years. It does count on the 10-year route, but not on the 5-year route to settlement. Just an idea of the costs and the timeframes. So this application fee is £700 for the main applicant and any dependents applying. There will also be the immigration health surcharge, or possibly known as the NHS fee, and that is £624 per year. So for the 2-year visa, you're going to have to pay that twice. And the application is usually decided within 8 weeks of the application going in. And during the time, if their student visa was to expire, they would still be able to remain in the UK and work in the UK to the conditions of their current student visa. That usually means that out of term times, students can work full time. It's only in term times that they're subject to the 20 hours work restrictions. Yes, that was a really whistle-stop tour of the graduate scheme. I know there's quite a lot to cover, so I'm going to let Glyn talk to you about the skilled worker.
Thank you, everybody. Skilled worker in 2 minutes. So skilled worker involves an employee having a sponsor license which has been issued to it by the Home Office. Those sponsor licenses can take sometimes a couple of months to come through, but you can expedite those license applications. Essentially, once the employer has a license, which is granted in 4-year increments, the individuals can be sponsored. Any number of individuals at that organization can be sponsored, provided they meet some certain criteria. So the job has to be skilled. The individual has to meet English language requirements, for example, by having a degree from Cardiff University, and certain financial requirements as well. Now then, in the day, more than 2 years ago, it was difficult to get skilled worker visas because of Tier 2, as they were then known, because the job thresholds are so high. Now, since December 2 years or so ago, it now means that employers can sponsor individuals of college leaver or above. So that means that it is bizarrely easier than ever, and it's reflected in the statistics that students and not even students who have completed their degree can now be sponsored by organisations. And certainly, as I say, that's reflected in the Home Office statistics. Unlike the graduate route, once you move straight into the, if you move into the skilled worker route, the individual accrues residence towards the 5-year period of indefinite leave to remain. After they hit the indefinite leave to remain and they get that indefinite leave to remain, it means that they become visa-free. Doesn't make them a British citizen. They have that option possibly a year after that, but that's sort of the journey that that your students would come by. So, more importantly, the commercial advantages and disadvantages. I'm an employee myself, the firm is mine, and I certainly employed individual international students in the past. From my personal perspective, professional perspective, I think the diversity and the skills, the knowledge, the culture that they bring to a firm can be very enriching. It can certainly be beneficial for us as an organization. What are the advantages of the graduate scheme versus the skilled worker scheme specifically then? Because I wish I had these sort of options available 2 or 3 years ago. So the graduate scheme, you've got a 2-year visa and the individual can work for you in any capacity. There's no requirement on you to take up a sponsor license. The fees are less, and what we tend to find is that graduates pay their own fees towards the graduate visa because it's a non-sponsored visa. It's something off their own back. The disadvantages from the student's perspective, from the graduate's perspective, is that it prolongs that journey towards settlement, towards indefinite leave to remain. And that's something to be negotiated as between you and your employer. Under the graduate scheme, you don't have to pay the immigration skills charge, whereas you do under the skilled worker. In the long term, it actually works out cheaper for the employer if you switch a graduate direct from the graduate visa, direct from the student visa, straight to the skilled worker, because the immigration skills surcharge will not apply to you. What is that skills charge? It's about £1,000 per year of the visa if you're a medium or large employer, or it's about £364 if you're a small employer or a charity. So there are cost savings to be made. So I would say, personally, from a employee's perspective, that with a graduate visa, you've got that opportunity to test your graduates. You've got that longer probationary period. You're not throwing yourselves into the sponsorship. However, there are cost savings were you to bring that process forward. These slides will be made available afterwards, so if you do want to have a chat either about our own experiences or about the law, then more than happy to do so. But thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you both. So welcome, my name is Alex. I'm the placements manager here in the business school, and I thought I'd just take the opportunity to talk a little bit more about work placements, because again, this is a nice way for, as a company, to meet international students and maybe try some of this out even before they graduate. Yeah, it does work, great. Just testing my eyesight now, looking that way. So I always start with this slide, I think, within placements, just to give you a sense of where we are in the business school. We've been doing placements for quite a few years now. Around 21% of our cohort are on placements currently, placement year opportunities. So it's quite a large number of students out on placement. Many of them are international students, Rakshanda being one of them, who we'll speak to a bit later. And it's an effective way of attracting the brightest talent into your business. So, you know, we have a number of international students, as well as UK students, who are looking for placements, looking for work experience right here in Cardiff or across the globe. Our partnerships are not just locally. We work with a number of companies, both across Europe and internationally. And you can see there, we're really proud by the impact our students are making in placement. By some of the awards that students have won, Rakshanda being one of them again. I just thought I'd highlight some of the different placement programs that we run within the business school. Now, I look after placements linked to the curriculum. My colleague Dave and Dave's team look after extracurricular activities. Okay, so between the two of us, we look after all the workplace experience across the university. First one to mention is our integrated work placement. This is for our best business management students. It runs for 20 weeks. And those students are, like I said, are our best students within the school. And we offer around about 15 to 20 placements every year by that scheme. It's been going quite a while, and it's something that's gained national recognition in recent years, which is great. The one thing to say there is that the student visa restrictions that apply don't apply to placements within the curriculum, because it's part of their program. So an international student can do exactly the same job as a UK student on placement or in a shorter term placement or a research project, because it's part of their degree program. That's really important. I think some employers don't appreciate that international students can do exactly what home students can do because it's part of their program. The next program that we look after, again, this is a program that many of you may know about, also known as the sandwich year. This takes place in the penultimate year of a student's degree with us, and all our degrees are 4-year variable. So the potential for a student to come out and work with a company in the 3rd year of their 4-year program. And it's quite a nice way because they've had 2 years of understanding the theory and they're applying the theory into practice. So you can get a really good student, or more international, potentially with you for 12 to 14 months in their penultimate year. And the final thing to say then is we also run postgraduate research projects. And these research projects are an opportunity for students to come in for free and look at challenges or opportunities within the business. So again, a great opportunity to have somebody maybe from, I'll give you one example. The Royal Mint just recently put an opportunity in for a project with a Chinese student because they want to look at the Chinese market. Perfect student for that particular role. It was really successful, and then now it's starting to implement some of that work that that student has been doing. The student got a lot from that experience, but at the same time, the company found the perfect student for that particular research project. So these are just some of the opportunities that we do within the business school. And again, other schools across the university do very similar things. So if you're interested in engineering or you're interested in computer science, then again, through the team, we can put you in those directions as well. I'll talk very quickly about this because I think this has been something that employers have asked for several years. We're doing quite a bit of work at the minute around developing professional skills. So employers will say to me, we want to make sure your students are excellent, but we want to make sure that they've got the Excel skills to start within their business. And when they start, they're on the front foot. So we're doing a lot of work at the moment around developing professional skills pathways through free courses and things that students can access. We actively promote these types of things out to students, and they're designed in partnership with industry. That's the one thing to say. So through our network, we're going out to these companies and the governing bodies and saying, what do you want talented young professionals to look like? And we've created these pathways. So again, it's hopefully bridging that gap a little bit. And with that, I will hand over to the next person. Thank you. Over to you.
Oops, wrong way. Yeah. Hi, so I'm Dave. I'm from the work experience team based in the very lovely Centre for Student Life. And Alex mentioned we set up a range of extracurricular placements, so stuff that students choose to do in addition to what they're already doing in university. We work with all 24 academic schools within the university, and we have sort of dedicated project officers to support those different academic schools throughout. Main sort of schemes that we're running that are relevant for sort of our international student cohort is our career mentoring, which is an opportunity for employees within the organisation to act as mentors to our students, offering valuable advice and career insights in a one-to-one structured scheme. It's not a huge commitment from an organisation. It's 6 one-hour sessions initially, and it's a great way to talent spot. And many of our students who do those mentoring schemes get offered work experience, and it's a nice little sort of stepping stone onto what we call our insights and volunteering. So these are sort of work experience placements that typically last between 35 and 70 hours in duration, very flexibly set up, fitting in around students' current commitments. And typically you might get a student doing half a day or a day a week in your organisation for those. And again, these are good stepping stones into our paid internships. So it's a chance for students to use specialist knowledge gained from academic studies and apply them to a role within your organisation. Typically, these are undertaken during the summer vacation, usually between June and September, tend to last between 4 and 12 weeks in duration. And a lot of students who've done these paid internships get offered ongoing, part-time casual work with their hosts, or occasionally sort of graduate roles. Our next raft of career mentoring will be taking place in autumn term. So if you are interested in getting involved in that, it's a nice, easy way to initially engage with us, and it's also a great staff development tool to do that. So I know we've got some case studies coming up. Just wanted to mention this one with Credit Safe. So this was an international student who did one of our internships and got offered a full-time graduate role at the end of it. And, you know, that was the first time Credit Safe had really engaged with offering placements. So they found the support that we can offer them. We'll hold your hands all the way through every stage of the process, from sort of advertising roles to recruitment. We help, you know, with promoting the opportunities to the relevant academic schools and friendly academics that we have within those academic schools. We'll also support you in sort of a selection, interviewing, all that sort of stuff, and we'll support you, you know, throughout the scheme. I mean, that's it from me. Over to Sasha, I believe. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Sorry, I just muted myself. I'm gonna quickly share my experience from China to the UK. So my name is Pistachio. I was born in a small town in China, and I never left my hometown when I was 18 years old. Then I moved to Beijing for my work. I worked in Beijing for 5 years. Then I got promotion from sales manager to sales director. But what I found is I got lots of career barrier that I don't know where my next step should be when I worked in Beijing. What I found is like one of my dreams could be work for a foreign company. I haven't decided it could be in China or in the UK because I haven't explored UK previously. Then I tried to improve my education background. Then obviously Belfast was the first destination for me to start my pre-master. Also, I started use my English as a study language. At the same time, because I want to adapt to UK culture and find if I would be interested in working in the UK. I did lots of part-time jobs. For example, I did marketing consultant, sales consultant when I was in Belfast. Also, at the same time, I feel like I fell in love with British culture. It's more straightforward and direct. I don't need to have lots of complex thinking as part of the Asian culture. Then I transferred my study to Cardiff University and started my master's degree. Then I started my strategic marketing. I got distinction. That was so happy for that. But then another part of my dream was about to do a TEDx talk, and I did it. What I found is that was a great way for me to build my personal branding. After that, I applied for the AGP program that's supported by Business Wales. So the full name for the AGP is called Accelerated Growth Program. As far as I explore the British culture, I found I definitely want to work for a foreign company. Then I started applying for lots of jobs in the UK. Unfortunately, not many jobs could sponsor me work visa. They always say you have to have the right to work. Until like one day I found Wargo. We had interview initially. At that time, they haven't been sponsored yet. Then because of me, they start being a sponsor. I feel really happy about because Chris, see here, sponsored me work visa, and he decided to apply for a sponsorship for me. That was an entirely different journey for me, back to my hometown 10 years ago. Then now I work for Wargo in the UK. Because of this journey, I think I really want to support business as much as I can. But certainly there will be lots of benefits if you hire international candidates. For example, because I'm from China originally, I can speak two different languages. One is Mandarin, now it's English. If we have international clients who is based in China, definitely need a person to talk to them in Chinese. I would be the person who can contact with them. And also, the specific example I could demonstrate is I did bring a client that is their headquarters in Beijing, but they have office in France. So we could fill the role for them for their France office. And that potential benefits for our employers is for us, like international candidates, we really feel like the work opportunity is rather precious compared to other candidates, I would say, because in my Chinese culture, we usually work extra hard. And we really want to challenge ourselves as we explore further in the world. And that benefits, like, we really appreciate the work experience in the UK. So as a return, we could bring lots of other benefits to the business, I think. So in general, like, I think Chris is gonna share more experience, what sort of benefits I can bring to Wargo and what benefits like international candidates could bring to the UK employers. Yeah, and if you have questions, I can answer later. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Rakshanda. No, Rakshanda Pistachio, thank you very much for that. We've jumped ahead a little bit and that's my fault, but Rakshanda's going to come up and share her experience now. And Rakshanda is a graduate alumni, and then we will speak to Chris, who is an employer from who employs Pistachio. Is that all right? You come up here. Thank you.
Sorry, I have a few notes on my phone just so I don't forget what I'm trying to say up here. But yeah, I'm Rakshanda. I am a recent graduate, very recent, like last year recent. I did a business management degree from Cardiff University with an integrated professional placement year. As part of it, I was born and brought up in India, lived there all my life, and then decided I wanted a bit of a change. I wanted to put myself out of my comfort zone a bit. That's a lie. I really don't know why I did it, and I don't know why I left. But I thought I'd make up something smart. But yeah, I decided to move out of India and to the UK for university and join Cardiff. Also don't know why. If anyone told me it rains 100 days straight in Cardiff, I probably would have made a different choice. But no, looking back at it, I'm really happy with the choices I've made. And it's just been such a great experience. And I'm really happy I can share some of it with you guys. What attracted me to Cardiff University, also don't know, random pick, but I can tell you what I really enjoyed about it. Cardiff as a city is a wonderful city to be in. It's a bit like London, but it's not as busy. It's got everything you need still. And I come from a small place called Goa in India, which is a relatively small state. So when I moved to Cardiff, it was nice and just felt easy, and the transition was smooth and just comfortable for me, really. Also got the best students' union if you ever need a night out as a student. Lovely. But whether it was, you know, support from the stages of my application, my uni application, so we had people come in to different cities in India and talk to us about Cardiff University, you know, students that were currently at the university speak to us about their experiences, which was really helpful as an international student who'd never been to the UK. It was really nice to hear some details and some specifics that you wouldn't know unless you've lived in the city yourself. So, you know, whether it was support right from application stages, right up to when I was looking for placements to graduate jobs, or when I was having a hard time at university, and just needed a bit of support in terms of extensions with my deadlines, or just a little support from my lecturers and professors. Everyone's been so supportive, and I've had such a great uni experience at Cardiff. And I also made really good friends while I was here, a really good support circle, which I was really fortunate to have, to be fair. Not a lot of people had it, so I can say very positive, would recommend. And yeah, I did go a placement year when peak COVID times. So when I was applying for placements, obviously the placements team was very helpful, you know, helped me throughout the process, whether it was applications, whether it was trying to figure out whether I can actually work a placement, or, you know, doing mock interviews and prepping for interviews when it came time for it. And like I think Pistachio also said, and you guys have also mentioned, a lot of students face the difficulty of not being able to secure placements even because they may be parts towards a graduate scheme. So I struggled a lot and probably had months and months of applications and interviews to no success purely because I didn't have the right to work in the UK us post my degree. So when I did get a placement, I was thrilled, only for COVID to come and ruin it. So I was really disappointed when they said, sorry, your placement's been cancelled. You know, because of COVID, obviously, it makes sense. A lot of placements were cancelled. So what I tried to do was, I still really want to do a placement year. I also wasn't ready to do my final year on Zoom and Teams. So I went back home to India and asked a company I'd previously interned with whether I could intern with them again, but as a professional placement year. Unfortunately, everything worked out. You know, Alex helped me out with the details of how it could be turned into a placement year. And it wasn't what I had planned, really. It really was very different from working in the UK, being around the friends I'd now made, you know, the lifestyle I was now living, the life I was living. But honestly, it was such an experience because it really showed me how resilient I was. And I have to say, I am proud of myself for how I pulled through that. And it paid off because I ended up getting a couple of awards. But yeah, the National Undergraduate Employment Awards. So I got the best contribution to a small and medium-sized enterprise, I think. But no, overall, it was a really good experience. And I think just having a placement, I felt so much more comfortable when it came to my final year. I was just a more confident individual as a whole. And it prepared me for a graduate role when it came to it. So when I was back in my final year applying for graduate roles, I felt like I had the confidence to go out, do these applications, do the interviews, because I'd already done the process before. And now I am on the graduate visa route, working in London at a company called Mouse. So I do affiliates and partnerships for them, and I'm having a really good time. So thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, that's me. That's my story.
Thanks so much. I just wanted to you got it. Yeah, there we go. I just wanted to pop up quickly just before Chris came up, because there's something I wanted to highlight that Rakshanda talked about, and it's that right to work kind of barrier that our international graduates in particular are facing, and what Glyn and Emily mentioned earlier, well, Emily it was, about the graduate route visa, and that's what you're on now, and that helps to sort of manage that, and this sort of, you know, that phrase, right to work, eligibility to work, that we see rightly or wrongly on job applications, and you know, Glyn and Emily, they can help you with that wording, but you know, but that graduate route visa is that mechanism to sort of get over that barrier. And I just really wanted to highlight that quickly because it's a real issue. But Chris, sorry, I don't want to take any of your time, but yeah, Chris is our last speaker, and then we've got questions, so thank you.
Hi there. Yeah, so I'm Chris Chugg. I'm the founder and one of the major shareholders in Vargo Group. So I think it's probably worth kind of framing why I'm here, I suppose. And I believe there's a number of reasons. One is I run a recruitment business. We work with a lot of international and national tech companies. So we help them right from their seed funding when they're building out their products and their concepts, right through the various kind of gears of funding. And we help them source technical talent to build those products. Alternatively, we also supply them with commercial staff, so whether that be salespeople, finance directors, whatever it might be, for their back office systems. So one of the reasons, like I say, I'm here is because I think, you know, I'm basically sitting in the boardrooms of lots of different tech companies all the time, and coaching them and helping them attract and retain talent, which in the tech market, as you know, constantly changing. There's huge pressures and skill shortages. So that's one reason. The second reason is we actually sponsored Pistachio. So hi, Pistachio. Yeah, so we sponsored Pistachio and obviously have gone through we took her on through the highly skilled workers visa route. So hopefully I can give you a little bit of insight into my experience with that. And finally, I think, you know, just around the benefits, what I think that which I'm preaching to the tech companies that we deal with, really, just around, you know, the benefits, I suppose, of taking on people international students, or whatever it might be, through these visa routes. So I was going to say, in terms of the process, I'll skip over this because I know we've obviously gone into that, but from my perspective, we chose the highly skilled worker visa. Pistachio, when she came to us, was on a student visa, so we could get her working straight away, but we weren't geared up to sponsor. I suppose with these tech companies, I'm constantly preaching to them that they, the benefits of taking people on, and the talent they will have access to if they do register as an employer to be able to sponsor. I suppose when Pistachio came along, she came through the recruitment process. She was head and shoulders above the rest. And when I say the rest, we were looking at taking on 3 people at the time. There was a lot of UK applications that came through, but Pistachio, without a shadow of a doubt, was top draw. Therefore, I suppose the wolf was staring me in the eyes in terms of, well, I've got to practice what I preach. I think I'll be a bit of a hypocrite if I didn't take her on. So we did. So we said, right, we'll take you on, and we'll go through the sponsor. From my side, there was a few little bits of processes and a bit of, obviously there is some expense, but actually, relatively speaking, it was fairly simple. So I'll fly through this because I know we kind of covered this. But so for me, what are the benefits of a highly skilled worker? And let's just kind of take a deep dive into that. I think for me, the obvious one is just the access to the talent pool. I think, the UK, believe it or not, is a relatively small part of the world. I know we're a major economy and all that, but actually we're still quite a small part of a much bigger puzzle. So for me, that the access to the talent, and there is some amazing talent out there, is just is the main reason why I think more employers should look at these routes to attracting talent. I suppose on the tech side, let's say there's such skill shortages. We're actually working with a technology business in Cardiff, which initially were looking to recruit into Cardiff. They were looking for local, they weren't geared up to sponsor, and they were really, really struggling. So my advice to others was like, why don't we just open it up to people who would need visas? The search went out, the response was just significant, and the talent there was amazing. And thankfully they took our advice, they went through and sponsored, and now they have some really good software engineers who are building out the products and pushing their business along, which they wouldn't have had if they just carried on trying to crank the handle with going through the UK talent pools. For me, I think this is one of the biggest one. I suppose Avago as a group, we're a recruitment business. We're recruiting increasingly internationally. So for me, I think the massive benefit is that, increase of diversity in culture. I think Pistachio, who was the first person we sponsored, I don't think she'll be the last, but she's the first. Straight away, we're recruiting now for a French business, which is looking for Chinese speaker, French speaker, and an English speaker. Obviously, with Pistachio knowing 2 of those languages, we're a good step down the road to be able to support that business, recruiting those types of skills. So for me as a business, I think we understand the cultures and the talent and the individuals from these different cultures and backgrounds. And also she brings a nice different culture to our background. She's currently actually, and has been for the last week, working from China because she was a bit homesick, so wanted to go home. So we was like, no problem, off you go, and spend some time with your family. You can work there. She stayed on UK time, and it works really well. And it's lovely seeing the pictures come back and just seeing a bit of sort of diversity in culture. But I think that really does, add to the flavor of a business and the culture of a business. I think, we were kind of sure we put this on, or shan't we? But actually, I think it's a really valid point. I think for somebody to get off their bum, come to the UK, study, put themselves in the firing line when it comes to applications. And I know it's not an easy process, and actually then secure a job, learn the language. I think, fair play to them. And I'm certainly not work shy. I'm a farmer's son, so I know a good day's work when I see one. And it's probably the reason why I've managed to survive in recruitment. But by God, does Pistachio take work ethic to the new level? So I think, and as she sort of said, I think the fact that we have sponsored her, I suppose, I think there is possibly a little bit of a psychology around, you know, I really want to give it my absolute all for this employer. And I think, you know, like I say, it's definitely paid off, you know, for us. And it is for a lot of the businesses that we work for. I think the skills shortages, certainly in the tech sector, are incrementally getting worse. As new technologies come through, all the all the students and stuff like that, they want to jump onto those new technologies because they're obviously the future. Obviously, the problem is then for businesses, there's a underlying legacy systems that they still need supporting. So I think I think in terms of increasing the skills and having access to the technical skills that you need, I think this visa routes is definitely a way forward. Again, it goes back to that cultural thing. I think, you know, we are, you know, San Paulo is the first we've recruited, which if you'd said that to me before COVID, when we were much more locally based, I would have laughed at you. But San Paulo is, you know, in South America is the furthest we've recruited. We're constantly recruiting internationally now. So again, having those understandings of those cultures when we are speaking to those candidates, I think is so important. I think that's it. Okay, lovely. Thank you.
Thanks ever so much. And we've got questions now, and John has got the mic.
I was going to say, if anybody in the audience, if you've got any questions, raise your hands. I think we've got a couple of questions online. Audience first. If anybody in the audience has,
please just ask. Like, there's no stupid questions. You know, we're here to sort of help, really. Okay.
I think John may be online. John, did you have a question? If you're happy to unmute yourself, otherwise we can ask on your behalf.
Yeah, no, Bore Pow, one and all. Yeah, I'm John Day. I'm Assistant Director for Workforce at Social Care Wales. We're the regulator for the social care workforce. Just had a question about apprenticeships and whether people on visas in skilled workers positions can access apprenticeship funding. We require in the social care workforce for people to have a minimum of a level 2 qualification to maintain their registered status. And there's been some confusion, I think, over whether or not they can access apprenticeships.
I think maybe Glyn or Emily would be. Oh, I'm putting Glyn on the spot now because we deal so much, I think, don't we, with it?
That's the first in 15 years I've been asked that question.
Question, John.
So yeah, it's a good question. So there are restrictions on what individuals with visa holders can claim and not claim. So there's generally a blanket restriction on claiming public funds. So anybody on a visa, generally speaking, there will be exceptions, but generally speaking, you can't claim public funds. Now, the Home Office defined those public funds, and that is not a public fund to my knowledge. So to that extent, there would be no restriction in them applying for it. It all depends on whether or not the relevant government department has its own eligibility criteria. But certainly, once you're on a skilled worker visa, whilst that skilled worker visa does link you to a very particular employer to undertake a very particular job, it ties you to that employer. The conditions of that visa mean that you can also study and undertake apprenticeships for third parties or as part of your employment anyway. So there is quite a bit of flexibility built into those visas. But I'm sorry, I can't answer the question very, very specifically. Sorry, John.
No, that's fine. That's great. Thanks very much. I'll keep searching.
Thanks, John. Like, is that something you could help John and his organisation with?
Yeah, no, absolutely, John. So if you want to send us your contact details, and that's something that we can look at. We actually are working with social care Welsh Government at the minute, so that's something that we probably need to know about anyway.
Yeah, and I just really want to reiterate, like, this isn't just sort of a one-off today. You know, we're here, we're passionate about helping the international community and busting myths around visas. So, you know, this isn't a one-off. Like, stay in touch with us, ask questions, we'll figure it out. So yeah, thanks, John.
Thanks for the question, John. Pamela, are you happy to unmute? Yes, you are. Great.
Hi, yes, I'm Pamela Simpson. I'm the head of business operations at Marks International. We're a high-tech scientific manufacturing company based in Bridgend. And we are seeing the skills shortage, especially in the high-tech areas that we were talking about earlier. It was really a comment about perhaps a future breakfast briefing or further help with navigating the absolutely horrific UK visa website. The differences between defined and undefined CAS allocation, applying for a new COS allocation, what you have to do differently if the person that you're trying to get onto a skill visa is already overseas or already here. I'm dealing with both of these at the moment. We've been a sponsor for some years, probably about 10 years. Previously, it was when we had workers. We had one from the US, we had one from Kenya, one from Canada. Now, of course, we're having to go through this for EU citizens as well. It's just an absolute nightmare. And most SMEs don't have a department that deals with this, and neither can we have, legal counsel on call to deal with them. So any sort of workshop that takes the 432 badly written presentations that are on the help section of the site and converts them into a simple workflow would be helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And we all feel your pain, absolutely. Yeah.
I was going to say, Pamela, there's the Welsh Government have just announced, or they've just published a survey for employers to complete, looking at their views and their experiences of UK immigration. So it's certainly on their agenda at the minute. And certainly I can send, we can circulate that survey out.
Yes.
They are looking for as much input as possible.
Yeah, so we'll get that survey, and then not that I kind of want to talk details now, but Pamela, I think we work with you with Marks anyway.
Yes, yes, you do.
So let's have a conversation about what we can do for the future, definitely. And I was asking Glyn sort of, is that something we can do? And he gave me a little nod. So yeah, not to put anyone on the spot, but no, yeah, let's do it. Let's try and figure out how we can make that easier. Hi.
Hi, thank you very much. Lloyd Powell from ACCA, so that's accountancy professional body. Like other sectors, accountancy is facing a lot of skills shortages. Just on the internships and placements that Alex spoke about, be really useful, particularly for smaller practices, to be able to know which ones are paid that they have to pay for and which ones might be unpaid. I know a lot of firms don't do unpaid internships, but I think they will like to know at the outset, which ones might be 2-week short placements and which ones might be longer placements that they have to invest in, at the current time with, all the cost pressures they're facing. But I think the whole presentation has been fascinating. I think the work that accountants can now look at another area for meeting those skill shortages is great. So thank you all very much.
Welcome. I don't know if Dave or Alex wants to...
Absolutely. So just on that point, it's very easy for us to put together a bit of a matrix of what we offer and what universities offer broadly for all sorts of businesses, whether that's curriculum-based placements, the longer placements, or the shorter extracurricular type activities. So we can do that very easily, and we'll have a chat about that because we do that all the time, don't we, Dave, with companies. The other thing to say is generally in the business school, how we approach it is if it's short-term work experience, then they can be unpaid. Anything that is a job, a role to do, like longer-term placements, we would expect them to be paid. But there is a flexibility in what a work experience offer looks like. So if a business comes to us, we don't say it's this, or this for you. We will have a discussion and we'll talk about what does the business need? How does it fit within the business? What is the best first step? And based on that, then we will decide what the best way forward is. And it might be for the first year that the business picks up 1 or 2 different ways of engaging with students. And by the second year, they're in the full flow of what the university can offer. But the challenge is there's so much opportunity for businesses, is trying to bring that down to something that's very concise, very clear, that initiates that first conversation. And that's something we can do quite easily because we've done it before. the other advantage we have is that there's only a few of us that someone needs to speak to in order to get this information. So, you know, I think years gone by, you know, trying to contact the university and find out who to speak to is a minefield. I think that's gone now. I think you can speak to one or two people quite quickly and get what you need. So short answer, we can put something together and go from there if that sounds good. Lovely, thanks.
Yeah, we're here to help. I know I've said it a few times, but yeah, but you know, whatever it is, whatever issues it is, we'll figure it out to try to make it more accessible. And I think we're up to time now. Oh,
all right, we've probably got time for one more question. Yeah. If there is one, yes, there's one more in the audience here. Great.
Thank you very much. Lucy Burgess, I'm a HR consultant supporting a business with their first license application. I was just wondering from your experience, what about the costings? Are these usually covered completely by the business, or is there any sort of splitting and any clawback?
Good question. That's a tricky one, isn't it? Because there's a couple of answers to that, and the employers do it differently, and I don't necessarily know who wants to answer it.
Well, I was going to say, from our point of view, we covered all the costs, so it was quite simple. But I think with other employers that we recruit for, I think it varies. You know, I suppose that's one of the benefits of somebody going through the graduate route, isn't it? Is the fact that they would have covered some of those costs for the employer, which I suppose makes it a bit more attractive, doesn't it, to the employer? But yeah, I think it's down to the employer, I believe.
Yeah,
certainly in my experience.
I think it's a case of like having the information, and it's been like touched today because we've action, you know, it's action packed today, but it's having the information and then you making the decision based on what suits you. You know, Chris was in a position where he could fund it all, but we, you know, I see job adverts and I hear back feedback from students where they've been asked to pay different parts of it, and there's confusion, as Pamela's mentioned, there's flexibility if you look at it as a positive way, but also like Newfield's Law here as well, you know, to work with, to help. And this isn't me, you know, selling them. It really isn't. It's just, it's a complicated process. And yeah, as you know, Pamela highlighted it, and like, let's try and make it a bit easier. But yeah, is that okay? Yeah, thanks.
Okay, on that note, I'm going to draw things to a close, I think. Can I just thank everybody who's spoken this morning, all the panel, and Pistachio, I forgot about you as well. Thanks for joining us from China. Thank you, A, for joining us, and B, for running to time, which has amazed me this morning. I'm really, really grateful for all of that. Big thank you to those of you who've joined us either here or online this morning. A reminder, I think Lynn said earlier on, we'll share the slides with you. There's a huge amount of data that you've seen this morning, lots of it that you won't have been able to read. We'll share the slides, we'll share the link to the recording that should come through to you later on today. So digest the information. If you then have follow-up thoughts, follow-up questions, either come back to me. Lots of the contact details will be on the slides anyway. We'll make sure that those are there, but come back to me if you just want to be connected with any of the guys here. Because that's the whole purpose, is trying to use the experience and the knowledge that you bring to the table. So thank you everybody for joining us. Diolch yn fawr iawn I chi am fod efo ni bore yma. Gobeithio'n fawr fyddwn eich yn eich gweld chi eto cyn bo hir. Hope to see you again soon. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Bye.